Alrighty, today we're going to be having a look at the if function. We're going to look at 5 different ways of how the if function can be used, from beginner to pro. But before we get started, we need to determine the purpose of this function. The if function is a logical function to determine whether an argument is true or false and return the relevant result. So let's dive into the various if functions. First, we're going to start off with the basic if function. Alrighty. So to get to the if function, we're going to make use of the insert function. Option over here. Type in a brief description of what you want to do and then click go. So we know we want the if function. We're just going to type in if, enter, and you're going to see that it's going to bring down the different options over here. So we want the first one. So we're going to select it and click OK. That's going to bring up the function argument dialog box. Right, with this function arguments dialog box, we're now going to start inserting our values over here. So what do we want to do? Firstly, we want to see if our consultants have brought in more than a certain amount of new clients, and if so, then they will qualify for a bonus. So we want to see if they've brought in 20 or more new clients for the month. So our logical test is going to be, we're going to go have a look at the cell with the amount of clients inside of it. So inside your logical test, we're going to click on C3, and we want to know if that is greater than 20. Okay. If it is, then we want to add in yes. Remember, text needs to always go inside of double quotation marks. And if it is false, then we want it to return a value of no. All right, so just to go through this again. Simple if function. We do the logical test first. We're going to go have a look at C3, see if it is greater than 20. If it is, it's going to return a yes. If it's not, if it's false, it's going to return a no. If you have a look on the side here, you're going to see that it's already telling you that it's true. All right. Your value if true is yes, and your value if false is no. The result is yes. If you have a look at the bottom left-hand side of the function argument dialog box, you'll see the formula result is yes. So you can already see that your formula is working correctly. And as you've been building your formula with inside of the function argument dialog box, Excel has been inserting it at the top over here. So let me take away the no for a moment, and you'll see how it disappears over there. So we can put it back in. No. There we go. And it's inserted it back in there. Right, let's click OK. And let's autofill. And there we go. Yes, no, no, yes, 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 no, yes. So all those with yes now qualify for a bonus. And you'll see that your formula changes relative to the row that is in. So now that's C4, C5, all the way down to C10. All right, but the rest of your formula is remaining the same. And that is your very, very basic if function. All right, moving on to the ifs function. So the ifs function, the way it differs from the if function is that it has more than one criteria. So your standard if function looks at one cell reference, and it has an argument inside of that. The argument being greater than 20. The if functions works slightly different. So let's go over to our if functions, ifs function. All right. So over here, with the ifs function, we can add even more logical tests to our formula. Let's say that I want to have a bonus structure according to how many clients each consultant brought in. For over 40 new clients, I will give them a bonus of 4,000. For over 20 new clients, I will give them a bonus of 1,000. And for less than 20 clients, there will be no bonus. So let's have a look at how this works. Again, we're going to come up to our insert function over here, and previously we typed in ifs and it gave us a range of different ones over here. This time I'm going to type in ifs and enter. Right, and there's my ifs over there. Same as if I were to type in if and select go, you'll see that my ifs is down here. Right, so you're going to select the ifs function, say okay, and it's going to start off with logical test 1 and value if true. Right, because I can put in more than 1. So we're going to say that if C3 is greater than 40, then I'm going to give them a 4,000 bonus. Then we've got our second logical test. We're going to look at C3 again. All right. We're going to say if it is greater than 20, because remember we said that if it's greater than 40, they get a 4,000 bonus. Greater than 20, they get a 1,000 bonus. So we're going to say 1,000 over there. All right. And our third logical test will be if C3 is less than or equal to 20, because remember we haven't done 20 yet. We've been going greater than 20 and greater than 40. So if it's less than or equal to 20, okay, it's going to be false. All right. And let's say okay. Again, let's have a look at our answers over here. We've got a true, we've got a true, we've got a false, a formula result. If I hit tab, okay, and value if it's true, we don't have to really worry about that. So let's go okay, and let's see what happens. Right, sorry, less than 20. Where did I go wrong over here? Let me just have a look at my formula again quickly. C4, C3, C3 greater than 20, C3 less than equal to 20. That should be right. Let me just see where it is going wrong over here. Alrighty, so looking at this, I still need to put in one more value for the third logical test. So let's just put in a 0 over there. Alright, so now I can see my things on the right hand side. I can see my answer is 4,000 over there. My formula result is 4,000. So what I forgot to do was put in a value if true for my third logical test. Let's click enter and there we go. Let's autofill and see if this works. Right, so I have 1, 2, 3 consultants that are getting 4,000, 2 of them that are getting 1,000, and 3 of them that are not getting anything else. So this is the ifs function. So the ifs function allows me to put in more than one logical test with its option that if it's true. So looking at the formula at the top over there again, let's quickly open this up. C4 greater than 40. Okay, it's going to return a 4,000 if it's true. C3 greater than 20. Second logical test, going to return 1,000 if it's true. C3 less than or equal to 20. My third logical test is going to return a 0 if it's true. Right, and let's just cancel over there. And that is the if function. All right, let's move on to the nested if. All right, the nested if. What is the nested if function? The nested if function is the if function within the if function. So again, we're going to have a look at the our consultants and their new clients. And this time we have a new column with their ratings. Now, I want their bonus to be dependent on more than one thing. Not only the amount of clients that they get in, but whether their clients score a happiness or a satisfaction rating of greater than 5. So they have to have a satisfaction rating greater than 5 to still be able to qualify for that bonus. So let's go up and let's go have a look at the argument that we're going to have over there. And we're going to go to our if function for this. So again, we just go into our insert function, if, just the normal if function. And let's get started with it. So in our logical test, because I want to look at the number of clients and the rating that the clients gave to see whether it's true that they get a bonus or not, I need to add in the AND function because I'm looking at both, one and the other. All right, so add in AND, just follow up at the top here, as you can see how it's been written in. Then I open up my brackets. My first argument, or my first logical test, is to see if my amount of clients is greater than 40. All right. Then I put in my semicolon, because that's my first logical test done. Then my second logical test is I want to see if my rating is greater than 5. And I'm going to close that off. Now, what do I want to have it return if it is true? Well, I wanted to say yes. And if it's not, I wanted to say no. All right, as simple as that. So we're taking the if function, we're adding the AND over there to be able to add in multiple arguments over here. Right, so you could say, for instance, let's say we have school marks. So you could say and if that cell reference is greater than 80, that's gold. If it's greater than 70, that's bronze. Silver. If it's greater than 60, it's bronze. So that's where your nested if function can come in handy over there. Right, once we're done with that, just double check that everything's right on the side of here, and it says yes, and our formula result is yes. So we know that our formula is working properly, and we click OK. Right, so there we have it at the top there. If, in brackets, and C3 needs to be greater than 40, and D3 needs to be greater than 5 in order to get a yes. So if we autofill all those, now I only have 2 that fulfill that criteria over there. All right, and that is your nested if function. Hope that's all making sense to you so far. Moving on, we have our SUMIFS function. All right, the SUMIFS function is slightly different to the SUMIF function, where SUMIF function will only allow for one criteria. The SUMIFS function allows for multiple criteria. Again, we're going to come up to our insert function, and we're going to type in SUMIFS and select the first one and say OK. Now you'll see that it only has criteria range 1 there at the moment. But as you work through it, it will give you the option for more criteria. So firstly, we need to find our sum range. Our sum range is our quantities over here. If it fulfills various criteria, we want it to be able to add up those criteria over there. All right, so our sum range, we'll click on the first cell using Control Shift and the down arrow. That will select all of the cells for that. All right, that's our sum range. Our criteria range. So we first do our range before we do our criteria. Is we want to look at the wine. So again, I'm going to select the top one. Control Shift down arrow to select all of the options. All right. So that is C3 to C18. Then my first criteria, I could type in wine if I want to, but if I want to change that, I'd have to come back to my formula and change it inside here. So instead, we are going to refer to a cell which will make the entire formula dynamic. So G3. So whatever's in G3 at that time will be criteria 1. moving on to criteria 2, because we have more than one criteria that we're looking at, right? This is our countries, because we've got France over there in our criteria 2. So our range, click on Spain, Control Shift down arrow. We got our range over there, and then our criteria. Again, we're going to click on the cell that says France, so that we can keep our formula dynamic without having to go back into it every time. And you can see on the side here what is all referencing and what is looking at. And we have our total at the bottom over there, 580. Okay, and let's say okay. And there we go. Right, let's go and change this now to olives. And let's change this to Spain. And there we go. As you can see, as I'm changing the different ones, it is changing the results at the bottom there. So if I leave my criteria 2 as Spain, I change my criteria 1 back to wine. There we go. Now I've got 775 wine for Spain. All right, but your sum ifs is similar to your count ifs and your average ifs. So you can go equals count ifs. As you can see, that's over there. If I go count if, it gives me the 2 options over there, which will then give me a count of these cells if the result is true. We can also have the average if, and we have the average if and the average ifs, which will also return results, the average count, if the result is true over there. All right, so that is my sum ifs over here. Moving on to the last one, that is our wildcard. Right, so what is the wildcard? The wildcard allows us to still be able to search in this section over here, even though there are now numbers and symbols before and after the text that we are looking for. So our products have remained the same, but we've put in Spain for criteria 2. As you can see over here, we've got Spain underscore and 4 digits. Here's another example over here, Spain 2018, Spain 3005. Here's one with numbers before Spain, 00593, and over here again, 2006 and Spain. So how do we sort that out? Well, we start off by opening our sum ifs function over here. So again, we're going to go up to the insert, select the sum ifs, say okay, and we're going to start entering everything in exactly the same as before. So our sum range, we're going to choose our quantities. Our criteria range 1, because our first criteria is the olives, so we're going to go with the products. Right, our first criteria is the olives. Criteria range 2, that's the order IDs, so we're going to select all of those. Criteria 2 is Spain. Now, as you can see over there, the result is 0, and formula result, it's not bringing anything up. Click OK, it's just going to give me a little dash. That is because Excel cannot distinguish between Spain and Spain underscore 0010. So we need to add in our wildcards over there. So let's open up our functions argument dialog box again. And now we're going to add in our wildcards here by our criteria 2. So we're going to start off before the cell reference. We're going to put in double quotation marks, asterisk, close the double quotation marks, and percent. Then we're going to come to the end. We're going to put in and percent, basically doing it in reverse. Double quotation marks, asterisk, double quotation marks. What this is effectively saying is the asterisk is your wildcard. It's saying don't worry about anything that comes before the cell reference. Okay, so whatever's in the cell reference, in this case it's Spain. Oh, so basically ignore it. and ignore everything that comes afterwards. Just go and look for that and basically extract that. If it has that inside there, that reference, in this case Spain, add it to the formula over here. And then you say, okay, there we go. So now it's going to look at this and it's taking Spain and it's basically just ignoring that over there. All right, and it's extracting the Spain. The same with the numbers before. It's ignoring all the digits before Spain and it's just looking at Spain and it's including it in the formula. So if I were to change this to France and enter, there we go. Again, France, everything before France, it's ignoring. And yeah, all my things are before France. Same with this one over here. It's just ignoring the numbers or the symbols that are before it. All right, and that is your wildcard. So if you have, let's say, your order IDs and all of your digits were after the name, then you would only put in the asterisk or the wildcard afterwards. If they were all before the name, then you would only put in the asterisk and ampersand before the cell reference over there. But because there's a mixture of them over here, we've now put it in before and after to tell Excel to ignore everything before and after the text that is referred to in cell G4. This asterisk can also be used in VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, and a couple other places inside of Excel. So I hope this has helped you and that you have a better understanding of the if function, the simple if function, the ifs function, the nested if function, the sums if function, and the wildcard. So again, let's just have a look at them. It's a simple logical test, a true and a false answer over there. The ifs function allows for multiple criteria over there, and it will look at all of the cells according to how far down you go and return the relevant one over there. The nested if will look at both your nucleons and the criteria for that, the logical argument, in this case being greater than 40, as well as the, say, the rating, in this case greater than 5. So look at both logical arguments, and then it will return a true or false option over there. The sum ifs, looking at that, you do your sum range. All right, then you do your first criteria's range, and then the criteria, and then you do the second criteria's range, and then the second criteria. And you can carry on to a third one and a fourth one if you want, but the more you go on, the more specific it becomes and the less results you're probably going to get back. All right, and then just to top off the wildcard, if you have references or criteria such as France, and it has other things with it, such as the numbers before or after, you can make use of the wildcard function so that Excel will ignore it and simply go and extract the text that is in the reference cell. Okay, and that is if functions for you.